Okay, great. Okay, great, thanks. So I hope that by today's workshop will be useful to you. And if anyone want me to supplement a bit of Cantonese because I'm bilingual, it's okay, right? English is fine, or a little bit of Cantonese. Okay, and all right. Yeah, because we have a cozy group. We have a close group, and just now I was chatting with some of the audiences, and I kind of know what you're expecting. So I'm trying to share as much as I know about making children's books as possible. I'm Libby Lam. I'm the author and illustrator of these 4 books. That means I'm illustrated, and also I wrote them. And for the first 2 books on the left, I think it's on your right-hand side. On the right-hand side is about girls' empowerment. And then the 10-star service on the third one is about gratitude. And the last one with the red cover is about kindness. And I'll go through the idea of each a bit more later on. Apart from being an illustrator and also a writer, I also take on art commission projects. So if somebody hired me to illustrate a book, I'll consider. And this is one of my projects here. It's called Animal Guardians of the Galaxy. It's actually a government project asking me to illustrate I can't recall, it's like 20 or 20-something pages of bilingual Chinese and English comic book to educate kindergarten and also primary schoolers about protecting animal rights. Because more and more animals abuse is happening in Hong Kong, so we want to make sure the younger children are understanding how they can report those cases and how they can help protect animals that they love. Other than that, recently, I have been taking on a new illustration project as well. It is a commission by a charity called Room to Read. And this book is dedicated to the migrant children who live in Hong Kong, to come to Hong Kong from the Philippines and India or Pakistan. So this is also a very meaningful project. I don't have the cover to show yet because it's still ongoing. So I'm showing you some tested cover. And I'll go through a little bit more as I illustrate today's workshop. Now, today's workshop is called How to Make a Picture Book. But before I go into the technical aspect of it, I would like to share with you my journey to become a children's book author and illustrator, because it is not my first career. I have a career prior to this, my second career. Any one of you recognize this place? Yeah, I was born in one of these cubicle apartments in this 7-storied temporary settlement estate in Wong Tai Sin in the 1970s. If you ever visited these buildings, you know that we don't have a private bathroom or kitchen in the cubicle. We have to go to the public common places to go to toilet and take a shower. This is how we live. So I was born in one of these cubicle, and this is like the first generation of co-living. Before we have co-work, before we have co-share, because we are sharing the spaces with hundreds of families on one floor. And what's more is we are sharing spaces with hundreds of mice families on one floor. I remember one of my pastimes is to sharing snacks with little mice caught by my grandma's trap. So this is how we grow up. And this is me when I was younger. I was rolling in a piece of wood that served as a work desk of my grandpa by day and his bed by night. So it had served 2 purposes. And I remember I was sharing a single bed on the lower deck of a bunk bed with my grandma and my cousin. And my cousin and I fight every night to sleep. So this is how we live those lives. So for a struggling family, I didn't feel that I'm struggling, but as I look back, this is a low-income family. So for low-income families like mine, I could never really afford buying children's books that are new, right? So I have a small children's book library that it's all hand-me-downs from my neighbors. And it's not until I turned 8 that I had my first children's book. It is a gift from my aunt. And this book is called Hey Diddle Diddle. I remember vividly when my aunt, or 姑姐, they handed me this book and asked me to sign my name on the first page. I was fascinated. I was so anxious that I would mess it up by writing my name, Libby Lam. But as I turned through the pages, I was totally enchanted by the beautiful illustrations by Anne Granham Johnston. Of course, I wouldn't know her name back then, but every detail of her great illustrations just make me daydream about anything. And because back then, even though I'm 8 years old, this book is a nursery rhyme, supposed to be the target audience are the nursery kids. I knew nothing about what it's all about because I know very little about English. But so instead of reading those words, I was reading every detail of the illustrations. I remember how the snowflakes fall on Mary's eyelashes, and also how she painted her velvet socks. So so I spent hours and hours reading the illustrations instead. So as my imagination took flight, I made up my mind. I wanted to study English, so that I could understand the book. And at the same time, I wanted to draw as well as her, so that I can create my own fantasy world. But then, then life goes on, and fast forward, when I was 17, I was given a priority offer from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. So they gave me a priority offer to have a gateway to go to the design school without going through A-level. Back then we have A-level, we don't have DSE. So, but my family asked me to turn it down because they think that being a designer, learning art, promised no future, especially for a struggling family like mine. When I'm the firstborn, I'm supposed to take up the breadwinner's role and bring home the money. So they asked me to turn down the priority offer and go through A-level, go to the mainstream to study in the University of Hong Kong. And this is me, because after graduating from Hong Kong U, I took on another master degree in psychology in CUHK. So this is where I'm in Chinese University. And then when I graduated, I took on a job in consultancy firm, relocated elsewhere in Asia. And then at some point, I go back to UST, the University of Science and Technology, to finish an MBA, because I've been working in corporation like blue chips and Fortune 500 companies like Walt Disney and PepsiCo. And MBA is something that would help me to progress in the corporate world. So this is me speaking to a group of MBA candidates in UST. So all this time, for the 17 years, I haven't been drawing. So since I turned down the priority offer at 17 from Polytechnic University, because I chose mainstream, and life's so hard that I could never think that I have the appreciation for art. So all this time I was thinking how I can move up. It's like every Hong Konger, moving up, earning more money, getting better promotion, getting more benefits for home, for my family. So I've never had the spare energy to think about what's beautiful, what art means, how to story tell. So when I look back to all those days, when I actually cut myself off from art, this is a self-portrait that I drew a few years back when I embarked on another journey in art. When I look back to those days, I was like a hollow person. Remember you saw those peach trees in the Chinese New Year market? 嗰啲年宵你見到嗰啲桃花 is all being tied down. They're not allowed to blossom, right? So I was like those tofa, like those peach trees. I fell for them when they stood there lonely and then they're being tied down. So I was like the person with a hollow heart, with a very dry, ready to really want to blossom, but I cannot. So not until I have my firstborn, and she's here today. And this is her when she was like 2 years old. I gifted her a box of color pens, and this is her smiling, making every brush with wonders and excitement, and of course anxiety as well, extremely delightful. And she drew so well. So within months, she already drew a perfect circle in one stroke. So I was thinking, how come she can do so well? There must be some DNA, right? Connection. So maybe it's from me, because I already forgot about my ability to draw for all these years. And then, and my second one as well. So this one day when we were tidying up our house, and then I found a memory box where I put all my childhood favorite things inside, right? And you know what I found? I found Hey Diddle Diddle. So when I took up Hey Diddle Diddle from the box, and the book now looks so tiny in my big hand. It used to be quite big. So when I opened it up, it took me, anyone watched the movie Somewhere in Time? 時光倒流70年. It was like when Christopher Reeves saw Jane Seymour's portrait, and then he immediately got into the time tunnel, and going back to the years when Jane is young and flourishing. So I was like opening this book, which is not an object anymore. It's not an object. It is actually a time tunnel to travel, to take me back to those years when I was young and dreaming up of all this fantasy. So that, and also, this is my younger one when she was like 2 years old. Every day she's asking me to read her those books, and now I could read her those books, not just reading illustrations. So that was the time when I really feel the wonders of children's book. It lasts from generation to generation, and this is why it's fascinating. And so this is it kicked off my whole journey of delving into the world of children's literature. But as I've been reading hundreds and hundreds of books with my girls, what I found is there are certain beliefs that I wanted to share with them. I couldn't find it in the bookshelf. So, and I stumbled upon this quote from an American author called Beverly Cleary. She said, "If you don't see the book you want on the shelves, write it." So that was the time when I decided to quit my corporate job and took on an art writing and also illustration course in an American college in Hong Kong and learn art. I started off 12 years ago, and this is me today. So this is how I came about in becoming a children's book author illustrator. So now, when you do a book, we need a story, right? We need an idea. And then we also have to make it happen, to make it into a book. Execution. It's not just conception, but also execution. I would argue both are equally important. Otherwise, if you have a good story, it would always lock in your brain, and then the idea would never see daylight. So the execution part is very, very important as well. But if you can only execute, you have no idea, you can never kick off the process. So the first thing is get an idea, get a story. I always, when I was doing those school visits with primary schoolers and middle schoolers, it's very easy to get an idea for your story. The first thing that you can ask yourself is, what's on your mind? There are many things that is happening on your mind. It's maybe a good songs that you listen to. It may be some food that you like. I have a friend who make a book about instant noodles because she loves instant noodles, or maybe a sport for marathon because she loves running marathons. It could be a place, a person that make you feel very fascinated or also frustrate you. So it could be anything that's so close to your mind. And you know what's closest to my mind? my two girls. So I was hoping to draw them something and draw them into my books. But when they were young, I always took them to the toy shop and let them see what kind of toys they have. But what I always see is dolls on the shelf. And they are very pretty dolls, dressed up, but they're in a box. So one day, I look at those boxes, I feel, what if I'm those dolls, being boxed in, very well dressed up, but I am waiting for someone to pick me up. What kind of life that is? And this is the toy that we are supposed to share with our children. Is there another life that they can live? What if I have the power to break down those walls and walk out from the box and tell the world what I could offer? What will be another life that I can open up new doors? So that was the idea when I conceived Checklisted Beauty. Checklisted Beauty is debuted in 2015. When I first started with design school, it was 2011. And I come up with a story and the draft in only a few months. But then I need to work on the story. It's the execution part. So after 2 years in the design school, I have some draft. I have some watercolor draft. And then I send it to several local publishers, trying to get them published. And I got rejection one after another. But they actually gave me very good feedback. And one of the very critical feedback is Hong Kong is not a picture book market. It is a textbook market. So I think you will all agree, right? Whether it still is, it was like 2013. Whether it still is 10 years later, I'll let you to decide. But this is what I got. So I really have a lot of learning from those rejection meetings, and some is just an email. So I went back to my school and I shared that with my professor. Of course, there will be a lot of emotional turmoil because getting rejection is hard to swallow. And then after that, and we discussed maybe we should translate it into English because I first wrote it in Chinese and thinking I should target the Chinese market. But they said, in this case, we have to open up a bigger market, which is English. So I translated it. And also, instead of using watercolors, I use digital. Because digital is easier to make changes. If I got a contract or anything, if the editor want me to change anything, then I can make it, instead of redoing the whole thing, I can just make small changes. So this is how I came about, and about 2 years later, when I was fine-tuning my book, I'm also sending more letters to publisher, and finally I got one, which is new. They are excited about opening up a publishing house, and they wanted to try a new category, which is children's book. And they think that the idea of the book actually are in line with the philosophy. So they take on my project. So it's debuted 2015. Checklisted Beauty is about how true beauty lies within. So because we are everywhere where we go, we were taught that we should dislike what we have. How we look, we have to dress in a certain ways in order to get popular. But I wanted all the new generation of girls and boys to love themselves. So this is why I created my characters based on my girls. And they're happy, they love their family. They are so talented in many ways, sporty, and they love nature, they love animals. But then at the same time, they're exposed to all kind of influence from the social media, talking about what a good body shape should be like. And if they go through the magazines, there's always a checklist, a beauty checklist. They have to dress certain ways in order to be popular. So all this actually puzzles the young girls. And some of the research that's done in UK show that girls as young as 6-year-old started to think themselves as fat. So you see that, and that was actually a few years back. And nowadays, when all the social media got more popular and people are taking selfies as well, the trend of getting young girls into depression is getting more serious just because they are not looking the way that the society is expecting them to look. So, and you see this all kind of influence. We walk on the streets, there is always messages telling you to dress in a certain ways and not to like yourself. So that's why this is the book dedicated to all young girls to appreciate themselves. So this is one of the characters that really show the young girls what should they look, and in order to be popular. So I is also always following the checklist. So this is how a young little girl, 10-year-old, go through the journey of loving herself, reappreciating what she has when the reality bites. So it's how she take on the challenges. So this is Checklisted Beauty. And after that, I think my publisher have done a great job of promoting my book, so it's become a bestseller. And so I do another book. I made another book in 2016, the following year. It's called My Best Friend Sunny. This is a book also on girls' empowerment, but through friendship. It is to commemorate a friendship I had when I was a kindergarten girl. I have a very talented classmate, 5-year-old. She is super, super talented, not just in sports, but also in academic. But then I later find out that her name is Sunny. The reason why she's named that way, because she was considered as an agent or angel to bring a son to the family. She is not her mom's first choice. So I was very, very astounded when I find that out, because she is super talented. She can offer the world so much, but she wasn't wanted in the first place. How could that be? So I memorized, this fact actually stuck in my mind for so long that I have to draw about it. So this is her, and this is all the journey that she goes through when she realizing her self-worth. And 10-star service in 2016. By the way, all 3 books live in the same universe. So you see these characters reappearing in different books, okay? So 10-star service, very simply, is about gratitude. Because in a metropolis like Hong Kong, every day we're competing. It's very competitive. We're talking about how to going up. It started off with a very narrow, narrow horizon. We always say, get better grades. Students get higher marks. And mom and dad earn more money. Always quantify our achievement. There's only very few parameters to measure success. But we always forgot how much we have. So this is a reminder for myself that I should be thankful for all I have. So this is called 10-star service. So this is, I'm the author and illustrator for all these books which live in the same world. And now I comes to Crispy Children. Crispy Children is another project in a separate fantasy world. I remember when I was working in the corporate, and we have an annual dinner just next door to Hong Kong Convention Center. And the annual dinner, you know what I see on the menu? Crispy Children. And we were laughing because my colleagues were laughing. Oh, it must be very delicious. I've never tried children before. So we were joking about this typo. And then, so this life incident stuck on my page, so silly, right? Stuck in my mind for so long. And then there's also when I was studying psychology in Hong Kong U and CUHK, I majored in social psychology. And there's a very famous social experiment by the Stanford professor called Philip Zimbardo. It is called a prison experiment, when he actually investigates why normal people turn evil in certain situations. Even though they're perfectly good, academically strong college student, when you're put in a certain environment when there is power difference, when it is unsupervised, the devil come out. So he was studying that as well. So these are entirely 2 different incidents, Crispy Children and Philip Zimbardo's experiment, but both stuck in my mind for so long. There's one time when I was in a car and listening to the audiobook of Roald Dahl. It's The Enormous Crocodile. And I was listening how he wrote the enormous crocodile trying to eat children. But this is so scary, right? But Roald Dahl, such a very well-known, very successful British writer, he can tackle this idea. So I'm thinking, why don't I trying something scary, and all these incidents that come into play. So I developed the storyline of Crispy Children almost in like 15 minutes. And I feel if any one of you have read the book by Elizabeth Gilbert, Black Magic, you'll know the story finds you. They come to you. If you don't do it, don't make it happen, they go to someone else. So I have to grasp on this opportunity and make it happen. So this is very briefly about this story. This is a little farmer called De. He is very self-sufficient. He live on the crops that he grew. So he has a little pet, this is a black pig as his company. But then one day the bad weather hit, he lost all his crops. So if he doesn't get a job, then he will be starving to death. So he must get a job. So he went to downtown to look for a job, and then he met rejection after rejection. And at last, he find a job ad. And it is a wealthy family wanting to hire a kitchen assistant. So he went on for the job interview. And then just to understand what it's all about, what his job is over. So this is the kitchen head, the head of the kitchen, saying that, what you need to do is very simple. Every day, you just need to gather the ingredients for the dishes that our master have ordered. So this is all you do. If you can gather all these ingredients by sunset, you'll be rewarded by carrots, 3 carrots. So De think that, I'm not going to starve, so I will take on this job. But then that was the time when he find out the dish that the owner, the master have ordered is scallop, broccoli, and crispy children. So he was so shocked. He was saying, it means it's kidnapping and killing. So he was actually thinking, is it a misunderstanding? It couldn't be true. But then he was completely shut down by his boss, saying, don't ever question our master. You are so low level here. What you do is to do your job. So, and otherwise you will never be rewarded with the carrots, and then you go starve. So he was struggling. So what he need to do is went down, pick up the basket, and went down to the hill to gather the ingredients. So he went to different places where the ingredients are abundant. But every time when he see a golden opportunity to catch one, he heard his heart calling him, no! No! So he stopped. He couldn't do it. So the children, when they're listening, it's like, they were starting to frown, and someone actually stand up and pointing, don't do it, don't do it. And then he went back to the mansion, and of course he got scolded. He's not doing his job. So I was like, and then the boss was telling, if you're not doing your job, then you will be the ingredients. Because if you cannot get the ingredients, then you will be the ingredients. So he went down to town again, and now he got a golden opportunity because there's a little girl, a lost child, looking for the mom. And it is his chance to save himself. Will he do it, or will he not? So I'll let you figure that out later on. And as I tell you, this is as a story about how you let your conscience be your guide. And there's always situations, especially when I was working in the corporate life, you see people, a little missteps can cause a lot. And also when you see someone is doing something, and you remember the kitchen, when the kitchen staff are all there, and they say nothing. So in psychology, we call the bystander effect. When no one was pointing out the issue, then it seems like no issue. And this is what the evil would come in. So I wanted, of course, the children may not understand all this when they read it. And of course, it's like an onion. When you peel off different layers, different meanings will come out. Something unexpected will come out. But I wanted the children to stick that in their mind as long as they could. And one day, when they get it, they may be 30 years old, 40 years old. That's okay. And this is the power of children's book. It lasts generation to generation. Okay, so now we're getting, I think I'm good on time. So how to make picture book? So there's a reason why I need to go through some of the content with you on the book, because it's easier for me to illustrate the second part. In a picture book, very simply, we need to write and we draw. And you can see the arrow are 2 points. It's a 2-point arrow. So as we write, we also draw, and as we draw, we write. We do it both times. For me, I write first. I do my manuscript first before I draw. But when I meet some editors, they actually recommended the other way. If you want to be creative, you can come up with a few drawings, shaping up your characters and see how the character, he or she or it, talking to you. What kind of life that you see through them, their eyes, and then you come up with a story. So both ways are fine. There's no definite ways. So for those who are working on your project, think about it differently. The format runs, but that's okay. So usually we have 3 roles in one team: is writer, illustrator, and editor. So it's very simply, editor is mainly to review the work of both, and also actually to cut down the length of the manuscript, and also to see if the picture can supplement the text, because picture book is very images heavy. We look for fewer words. So usually a book will cost maybe for young children, it must be less than 500 words, English. I'm not sure about Chinese. So this is usually the manuscript that I have developed in the first or second draft. Right after developing this draft, I will paginate them, divided them into different spread. Sometimes it's 1 sentence, sometimes it's 2, 3 sentences, and this will give life to a spread later on. And after the manuscript, you have the most exciting part, because you need to do 2 things, is to design your character and at the same time develop your storyboard. And again, you see the arrow is 2 points, so you're doing this side by side. So now is the character design. You have a character in mind. I hope everyone now, even if you're not having a book project, you have a character in mind. It would be yourself, it could be your friend or your daughter or son or your cousin, anyone. Think about the personality of your lead character. Is he or she or it a cheerful person, a shy person, or really carefree person? So think about that, because all these elements of a character would drive the shape, the facial expressions, the body postures, and how he or she dress in the upcoming draft. So, but first of all, you need to understand the power of shape. That's what we call shape language. When I do author visits in the primary schools, this is the most exciting part, but today is not a workshop. It's like one-way talking, so we cannot do any exercise, but shapes is very important. Think about circle. Go back to the days when you're young, how you approach circles. What circle means to you. When you're only toddlers, or when you observe what the toddlers are reacting to circles. Circles remind you of the hug of your grandma. And maybe the curvilinear lines when you pick up a flower. The flower is beautiful, and they're curvilinear, right? They're not angular. And think about the grandpa's tummy. Very soft, right? So this is what people encounter circle in a very early day of their life, and this is what we call shape language. It's a language that they acquire and from a very formative age without knowing it. When they're speaking, at the same time, they're understanding shapes. So think about the square. What does it mean to you? So if that child can appreciate the warmth of your hug, but they want to sit down properly, will they go to sit on a circle, or they will go on to sit on something squarey? They get it. Of course, they may not get it in the first place. They may try the circle and then they're wobbly, they won't. But then they will get it in the second chance. They will go to something squarey, because square means trustworthy. So that's why if your character is a trustworthy character, will you use circle or will you use square? It could be a combination of both, depending on the personality. So, and also triangle. Triangle is very tricky. Remember those Trinity paintings that we saw in the Renaissance era? It's all triangle. But in a stable triangle like this, because triangle also promise you stability. Stability, right? But how about we tilted it? Tilted it. Will you get your finger to poke that angle? Oh, yeah. Will you poke it? Yeah, you get it. You know, when you pick up a flower, rose, you see curvilinear shape, very beautiful. But when you hold on to it, you get hurt because you touch the thorn. And the thorn is angular. So that's why the angular shape is good for all the villains, the bad guys. They have angular shape. So it's very easy because children understand shape before they knew it. So that's why when I'm designing those characters, I use a combination of those shape language. For example, for my lead character, Azure, it's like a piece of bread, 好似個方包咁樣，一塊方包咁. And this is what you communicate to you. And the circle one is very cute, very round, very choppy for her sister. And for the beautiful checklisted beauty like Valerie, she's not a bad person. She's a bling bling person. Is a glamorous person, so I give her a diamond shape. So children will be able to get it right away. And once you settle on the shape language for your character, I started to draw thousands sketches. It's very important when you design the character because she or it or he will be the best friend of your reader. I have a mother telling me that her daughter have to read Checklist Beauty every night before she goes to bed. Or she has to bring the book with her on every overseas trip. So this is the best friend of your reader. And also, when you draw your character, you get into their world as well. So it's a better way for you to immerse yourself in the story that you're writing. So this is some of the sketches that I developed and with her sister as well, and also trying different styles and see which style will appeal to my target audience more, which is young children, 4 to 10 years old. And once you settle that, you come up with different facial expressions. She could be puzzled, cheerful, surprised, angry, curious at different times. And then I need to develop another character, secondary character, which is the opposite of the carefree, cheerful lead person, because she is a bling-bling person. She's a glamorous. So the way she dresses is different, and I come up with 13 choices. And I send it to my critique group, and they picked number 13. So this is how it comes about. And then once you have the character, you have to dress her up, or dress it up. And if she is, for example, now I color-coded her as blue because her name is Azure. It promised the color of blue. But even when she's surfing, the background is blue. If you do blue on blue, the character will never pop. So that's why I dress up in a different color, but the blue color will frame her up. So that's how you can do it. But then this is the opposite character that make her feel that she's not fitting in. This character comes with a different set of colors, mainly purple and yellow. So you have to dress her up in a different way and pose her in a different way. For example, she's reading the book Jane Eyre, but upside down. So she's pretending she's reading, right? So there's a lot of postures that you can maneuver when you're designing the characters. And now when I'm doing designing checklisted beauty, remember I said circle or round, oval is for someone gentle, right? Someone gentle, someone approachable, right? But then how about square or rectangle? Someone that you can trust, right? Someone you can trust. And remember I said, but how about the tilted triangle? Because the character of the head of the kitchen is tricky. He appeared to be a very trustworthy person, but then it turns out that he is not. So that's why it's quite tricky to design him, and that's why I have to use the bandana to make the tricks of the evil horn. So when you look him straight, you couldn't see the horn, but when you look sideways, you see the horn. But anyone can tell you what kind of everyday object that I based on in designing the bandana. It's some kind of food. What does that banana remind you? Very good, yeah. Very right, yeah, thank you. It's a croissant. When you see a croissant, what do you feel? You want to eat them, right? Yeah, of course, you like it. But how about you turn it upside down? Yeah? So that's why I draw inspirations from everyday life object. And it's easier for you to design your character. If you got some kind of mental block, just look around. Sometimes look around your fingers. It may give you some hints. So then turn it upside down in different angles, and you see things differently. And this is why when you see when he's revealing his true colors, he is showing that croissant upside down and sideways. And then I accompany the evilness with her pointy fingers and the teeth. And all this come to the angular side of him to reveal the true style. Because in a children's book context, you have to be literal because your children are young. So you need to story tell, but you cannot tell so much, too much, that they think, oh yeah, I'm just being told what to do. It's not given a chance to interpret themselves. So it's always have to find the sweet spot when you tell them enough, but not too much. So again, I come up with a lot of sketches. I try on the stick person for the character Da, like Pinocchio, but I really don't like it, and I change her into shorter legs, shorter limbs. And then that's how I came up, and this is how I construct a scene. Remember this place? Yeah, great, Ding Tai Fung. Remember they have a glass when you see the kitchen, This is my older one looking into the kitchen, and the kitchen people looking at her. That is the connection. That's how I drew inspiration from my everyday life. You and I may have gone to a restaurant like that, and you can leverage the opportunity to make a scene, constructing a scene. And this is how I drew the kitchen based on the reference that I have. And then when my younger one's having a cooking class, and after that I asked the chef, will he mind staying back a little while to construct a scene, to stage a scene for me, and he's gladly do it. So it's my little girl and the teacher, and based on that, I come up with a draft of them talking, and then I do a color test. It's only 4 rounds here, but I do more for every spread in order to get the right color, the right shading. And this is the final, the final draft. This is how I construct a scene. So remember we said after the manuscript designing character, we also have storyboard, right? Storyboard is very important. As I'm the illustrator of this new book by a charity, this book is about migrant children. A child from the Philippines came to Hong Kong to join her parents. She actually leaving her island life in the Philippines. So coming to a city jungle is a big change for her. So this is a lot of emotional journey for her to come to Hong Kong, to adjust to the city life here. It's actually very hard for her as a character. So I'm trying to feel how she will, what kind of emotions that she will go through. So I'm not sure if you can see them clearly. So I develop a draft first. So because I need to be reviewed by my editor, so I have to come up with more well-defined. Otherwise, if I'm working on myself, it's like doctor's prescription. You can never read what I wrote, but it doesn't matter at that stage. This one is more well-defined because it must be a bit self-explanatory so that the editor will understand. And then after the first draft of storyboard, I have to color them so that also to see how the color changes as her mood changes, as her settling down to the new life of Hong Kong. And I decided to use the color yellow as the delightful color. So when she encounters a new friend, everything brighten up. It's like, even though it's winter, it shows the sign of summer. So, and then I need to go into individual scenes to develop it furthermore. And this is the tricky thing, because I need to come up with a character, place it in an environment, and make sure everything is right when it tells the story. So, and there's a lot of tricks or techniques that you can use, and now because of time, I cover only a few of them. The very first one is called framing. Framing, especially when you're doing book cover, framing is a very useful technique. So this is the example that I show. It is a video game poster I designed, and this is the first draft. I think it's good enough, right? I can just show it, right? But then I accidentally put on a frame. It's like drawing focus on the character, and it's much more powerful than the original ones. So the framing is very important, and it exists in almost every Hollywood movie that you see, unknowingly. Sometimes it's framed by a window, sometimes it's framed by different people or crowd. Always single out the focal point, the main object. And the other one that you show is the rule of third. If anyone have used the software, the app Instagram, when you take a photo, they immediately show you this 3x3 grid. The rule of third is divided the picture plane into 3 sections, and your focal point, your subjects have to hit the 4 white points. If it is not hitting the 4 white points, you will not really get the attention of your readers. So every sketch that I develop, I always later on overlay it with this grid, like this. Make sure that your subject hit on those the 4 white points. So again, remember this story is about a migrant child coming to Hong Kong, and then she was very hard when she started. I think most of you also may have gone through the experience of coming to a new place, a foreign place, and then you miss home, and then you don't know what to do until you meet a friend that is all brighten up your journey. So this is how she feels. And I got this line as a sentence for that spread, and I have to design a whole spread. It's called, "It would be wonderful to make new friends here," her mom said. And from this sentence, I have to blow up a scene to show the hard life that she's living with her musician parents, because most of the Filipino, when they come here, instead of, they could be domestic helper, but at the same time, some of them become musicians in the bars and restaurants, right? And in this story, in particular, the parents are musicians, so they work in a very late night life, and they bring the child with them. So the child is not adjusting it to the kind of nightlife that she has, because she's from an island, and she sleeps early. So it's a kind of adjustment that she needs to make, and I have to communicate all that in one single scene with this line. Now, the contrast of, the hardship of living in Hong Kong, a nightlife for a child, but at the same time, she has a mom, she has a dad, she has the family love. So I need to communicate that by using all these techniques. Think about what you would do. Of course, you will not, because you're like out of context, right? This is how I wanted to do. So I go to the Quarry Bay, 鰂魚涌, to go see around the monster building. 係咪怪獸大廈? Yeah. That those migrant parents, migrants' families will live. That's what I've been told. So I go around the blocks and feel what they would feel if they live in an area like this one. And I look at those windows, it's all closed. What it will be like at night? And then I have to communicate this sentence in one single spread. So I think, and then I draw inspirations from Vincent van Gogh painting, The Potato Eaters. The reason why I think of this painting is because remember, all these are peasants, right? They are farmers. They run a very hard life every day, right? And you can see the hardship mark on their face and in their fingers. Because it's all lightened up, it's dark, but even though they struggle, they're enjoying the warmth of togetherness. So this is, I think, is a very good reference for me to communicate a similar feeling about that line in the manuscript. So I'm thinking what I can do is I come up with a draft. there must be a Hong Kong signature on that spread. People will see immediately it's Hong Kong. So I add on the Neon Lights. I'll show you later. Maybe it's a bit hard to see from the screen. And I have to see the density of Hong Kong. Very cramped space, very small window, very small apartment. So the family must be struggling. But at the same time, I have to communicate the warmth. Still, we have each other. We can have meals, something that we earn. Okay, so once I develop the draft, I have to put on the rule of third. And then I see, and also the gutter. The central line is the gutter. When you open the book, that's the gutter. And anything critical cannot fall in the gutter. Otherwise, it will be lost. And I see my Hong Kong signature, the Neon Light signs, fall into the gutter. Cannot pass. I have to move it. So I have to move the whole thing. And at the same time, I want to make sure all the gestures are right. So I asked a very beautiful family. The mom is a Filipino. And she staged the scene for me with the family when they're eating dinner. Remember the potato eater eating dinner? So they kindly staged the scene for me. I get the information about the light hit on her hair, on the food. And also they're real family, so you see the dynamic of them getting together. And this is how I come about. With the framing, because all the things are dark and you're framing that little window. And then the color of yellow coming out, signaling the feeling of joy. But then the dark purple, in the book, if you read through the book, the dark purple actually talking about the hardship of Hong Kong. But also, when they brighten up, it will be about the glamour of Hong Kong. So it's a different meaning for one single color, depending on the light and dark that you're using it. And then I have the Hong Kong Neon Light signature. Make sure you understand, this is Hong Kong in the first place. And of course, I need to test it with my technique. If it's fall under gutter and touching the rule of third. Okay, this is the last point. This is the take home, the last point before you go. Is the character transformation. Whatever story that you're working on, make sure your character goes through a transformation. It is true for all kinds of Chinese and English novels, even Gamyong. The characters have so much transformation that you will realize. Because people love to see transformation. And of course, if you go through the story training, they always have the curve, the story arc for you, the rising action and then the falling action. But now I'm going to show you something I hope you will find it useful. For example, for my crispy children, Da started off as a happy farmer, right? But then he got into the turmoil when he's asked to catch the ingredients, right? Then he's very sad. But at last, he came out as a hero because it's a book about unsung hero. He helped the girl. He didn't really catch her. But then he have to go back to meet his boss. So what will he do? So this is the character transformation that has to be communicated through your character, through the art. And I want to illustrate the transformation with the hero's journey. Anyone recognize who's on this picture? You may not know the one sitting down, but how about the one standing up? Any Star Wars fans here? It's George Lucas. Yeah, the director and the writer of Star Wars. And George Lucas is listening to this man talking. And this man is Joseph Campbell. And he is a comparative literature in America. And he was the one who talked about the hero's journey. And the trilogy of Star Wars that George Lucas have created actually follow the hero's journey. And this is what the hero's journey is about. First of all, when you talk about a character, whatever character in your mind, you start off with separation. We live in an ordinary world. We're not going to have any story, right? But then, calling you. You have to get out of this comfortable world. You have to get out. Then what will you do? Will you get out immediately? No. You're comfortable, right? So you try to refuse the call. No, I'm not doing it. And then this is when but at last, you cannot stay on anymore. You have to get out from your comfortable world. That's the separation begins. And then you initiate a range of challenges. Anyone have watched the story Spider-Man? Spider-Man, right? Peter Parker, he got that supernatural power all of a sudden, right? Right from the laboratory. That's how the separation begins. But he refused the calling. He doesn't want to be a superhero. So he went out and then he let go a thief. And then the thief ultimately killed Uncle Ben, the dearest person of Peter Parker. And when Uncle Ben was saying, with great powers come with great responsibility. And that's why Peter Parker rose to his mission and then become a superhero. So that's the initiation. And the death of Uncle Ben actually finished off her separation stage. You have to get out from your comfort zone and be someone. So initiation is all the crazy thing and the adventures that the hero will go through. And what the last thing that they will do? After winning all the wars and get beaten up and then rise again, they return. So Peter Parker returned back to Aunt May, the wife of Uncle Ben. This is her home, his home, right? So that's why the hero's journey is not a linear curve, it's a round curve. And that's why we have sequel, 有續集. It's always going through that journey. And you're telling me, wait, Libby, we're not talking about superheroes here. We're talking about children's book here. So why is it relevant? So very simple. Think about a situation when your child go to the first day of school. He or she is leaving you from your hug, the point of the red point, right? Saying goodbye. Is he happy? No. I don't want to leave my mom. So trying to refuse the call. No, I'm not going, I'm not leaving. Then he has to go into the classroom. This is how the initiation begins. Fighting, crying, screaming. But then he's trying to settle down, making new friends, playing toys, dressed up, helping others. And at the end, it returned to the mother's hugs in a grin, big smile in his face. So this is how we live that hero's journey almost every day. So if you ask me which stage I'm in, I think I'm in an initiation because I already separated from my corporate life, the world, and I'm getting into something uncomfortable, and I'm still in that initiation phase. But think about your life, which stage that you're in. You may have already finished off a lot of cycles of the hero's journey. But if you're working on a book, make sure that visually you communicate that cycle. The separation when he is happy, the middle point that he got into an adventure, he's not happy. His head is pointing down because it's very heavy heart that he's carrying, right? And then at last, he listened to his heart, and he has a little cape on him. So it's a slight change on the costume to communicate the transformation. So this is how you can use in your work to communicate that transformation. And of course, this is not it's not the only way. The hero's journey is not everything. I mean, some stories have a different plot, but I would suggest it could be something that for your consideration. And think about yourself. What stage are you in your hero's journey? And I think it will help you to build up your story in a much, much colorful and interesting way. So this is today's talk. Thank you so much for your listening to me. I hope that you will find something useful. Yeah, thank you. Should we open up for any Q&A? 有冇問題? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Libby. Like, honestly, during your talk, my eyes was wet for so many times. I think the profoundness you have on the observation of your daily life and how you use very scientific method behind your own the designing of your story really fascinates me. And thank you so much. I'm just very glad I'm here. I've learned so much from you. And my question is, now that there's a lot of AI tools to create images, I want to know, as an author, how much do you see that happen? Like the use of AI in your own design, does that help with someone, let's say me, I want to write a picture book, but I don't have an art background. Can the use of AI actually help someone who has an idea but hard to execute it?
Okay, thank you. This is a very important question. I thought that someone would ask, and you asked it. And this is still not conclusive because the development of AI is very rapid. It changes every day. For example, it earned 1 million users worldwide in 5 days once it launched. And I haven't been using AI personally to do my art. But as far as I know, I heard some of the podcasts that I can recommend you later to listen to, that the AI is good for helping the mental blocks. So if you reach a creative blocks, you already write a story and you don't know how to progress, the AI can, if you write a good prompt, 個提問係好緊要. If you write a good prompt and they would generate, maybe you ask them 10 consequences of how the story will progress, they will give you. And from there, you can come up with your own resolution. So that's what I heard. I haven't used it personally. But for the illustration part, I have a CUHK professor actually tried it before. And they were saying, oh, it's a tree, it's a fox, and how big should the tree put in a fox? And they were coming up. So they don't need to hire us. So they have everything in AI. But what they say is like a textbook field. You know, in the illustration world, we talk about something organic for the children's book, fantasy world, something more textbook. I think you will know what kind of textbook art that you'll get into. So it depends on how you position your own book. I think right now, maybe, and based on the professor's comment, is more on the textbook side, the kind of art that they can generate. But remember, just a month ago, we have a photographer earning a big prize internationally using AI-generated photo. So they add on a human touch. So I actually cannot give you a conclusive answer because the whole thing is evolving. But I think it will be a good way to use it. But at the same time, as the author or creator for a children's book, you need to make a good judgment. And at the end of the day, it is your own passion project. It has to be personal. If you cannot connect with it, you cannot connect with your audience. So yeah, it depends. Yeah, thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Hi, Libby. Thank you so much. Most inspiring, life journey from Wong Tai Sin to where you are today.
Thank you.
And the fact that your family told you, that polytechnic, direct entry into design, and you didn't take that because your family told you it's hard to make a living as a, as an illustrator and all that. Mm-hmm. But now you've come full circle, right? You've given up a corporate job. Mm-hmm. And now you are illustrating all these gorgeous children's picture books, right? Are you a lot happier now? I mean, have you found your passion in a way? Instead of, are you happier now than when you were doing this corporate job with the MBA and all that sort of thing? And then, can you actually live on it? I mean, your family was worried that you can't make a living, being an illustrator and all that.
I think art is for any industry in the kind of art. You have someone who really earning a lot, and someone is not making a living.
Yeah.
So children's book is one of these industries, and it's even fewer people are making money, and I'm not that one. To be frank, and it's still my passion, as a passion project, and that's why I have completed my corporate. I pay my dues to be financially stable, and of course I have the support of my husband and my family, to be able to learn how to save, the financial part is a different talk, right? Yes. And then I think I never really see it as a profit-making engine. And this is why Hong Kong is a textbook market is different. And it depends on how you want to be a person. You want to earn more money or you want to do what they love. And I think there's a lot very meaningful. Even if I talk to you, I think it's really I hope that you feel that I'm trying to share as much I
course,
know,
yes.
so that you can also create a new story and inspire only maybe a 5 person in the world to start with. It is so meaningful. So I think I answered your question. I'm happier. And I see that my children would have a souvenir of their childhood with this book. Whenever they open up, they see the world that, hey, they have lived in, and also a vast space for them to dream up what they could offer. Yeah.
I think your book with the messaging is fantastic. You know the one about body image, right?
Yeah, body image.
I mean, in today's South China Morning Post, it's like some of the school kids, they still wearing their masks, and then the studies show that it's because they are conscious. They think they're not beautiful enough and all that.
Yes.
So it's not for health reason. They just want to cover up because they think if they don't have their mask on, they look ugly, that sort of thing. So I think it's wonderful that you have a book like that about body image and self-confidence. And the message is really crucial because if kids grew up or growing up, with so many problems of body image,
Yeah.
it impacts their whole life, isn't it? Because they
Exactly.
always think they're not good enough, that they'll never be that whatever figure, the
Just
beauty.
by how they look.
Exactly, yeah. And there's nothing you can do about how you were born with or how you look, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're doing a fantastic job in making that difference. Your friend's daughter who takes her book with her everywhere,
Yeah.
that's because, the girl believes it, that she doesn't have to abide by all this messaging, advertisement around her. And I think that you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's very important to me to know that. Yes.
Hi, Libby. Thank you for all the sharing. It was really inspiring.
Thank you.
And I want to know more. Could you tell more about how you were struggling from getting a publisher, and how is it like to work with a publisher? Because once you have the story done, maybe you can publish your book by yourself, or you can find someone to publish it for you. How different would that look like?
I can only tell from my personal experience. I don't know much about the standard industry practice in Hong Kong. So for the 4 books that I work on, author and illustrated, I work on it by myself, and then I used my college as a critique group, my professor and my classmates, and they gave me really wonderful feedback. When I've done, then I send it to my publisher, and then they're going to review that. So they play the editor work. So it's more the editor part is coming in when I'm like 50% done with my work. But in the latest one that I showed, the migrant children, it is another one. I'm the illustrator. They have a writer, but because it's a picture book, the heavy lifting is actually on the illustrator, because the length of the story of the manuscript is cutting shorter and shorter, because many of the messages have to communicate with the imageries. So my role got into the first place. Very first is once I get the manuscript, I've been talking to the editor to review different drafts. So their role actually came in the very first place, and there's a lot of interaction between me and the editor. And then because it's a book that they will publish, it's not I will publish through my publisher, so they would have more control on the outcome. Yeah. Thank you. Is there any more questions? Any more questions from the floor? Okay. Thank you.